Okay, just 1 second. Sorry about that. Just getting started here. Sorry, I'm running a minute or two late here this morning, everyone. Just give me 1 second. Here we go. All right. All right. So give me 1 second here, and then we'll get started. Apologize for being a little disorganized this morning, but we'll do this. All right. So today's webinar is actually, in my opinion, probably one of the most important webinars that you can ever watch. And it talks a lot about your brand inside of law firms and kind of how that works, what you, how you look when you're in a law firm to potential employers, and also how you look to people inside of your law firm. And so once you master these tactics, it can help you a great deal. It can also help you to move to better firms. One of the things I also wanted to bring up that's very important to kind of address at the beginning of this webinar, and I'll talk more about it later, is regardless of your situation, meaning if you're currently at not a great firm, or you're unemployed, or you believe that you can't get into a large law firm, or kind of move up in terms of switch practice areas and a bunch of different things. All of this is actually possible for any attorney, almost even regardless of where you went to law school, or maybe wherever you are right now. And so once you kind of learn a little bit about what I'm talking about today, this will help you kind of understand how that's possible and how anyone can move up. So I would encourage you to take notes during this webinar, because we're covering a lot of very important things. And we're also covering things that most attorneys and law students never learn. And because they never learn this stuff, they don't have anywhere near the careers that they're capable of having. So what every attorney has is, and even when you're a law student, is you have a brand. And your brand has to be defined in a way that's positive and not negative. What a lot of people don't realize is when you're working for any employer, you are essentially a product. And what that means, if you're a product, is it means you have something that you're selling in the market, and you want that to be as good as possible. Now, there are things that you can't change. You certainly can't change where you went to law school or how you did there. But those sort of things are really only important mainly at the beginning of your career, not later. As you progress in your career, you're going to start, fleshing yourself out as a brand, and you need to learn how to actually build a good brand and protect it. What I can tell you is I do a lot of consulting for partners and even law firms seeking a certain type of people. And when anybody that's advancing in their career needs to understand how to create a brand for themselves, meaning what is it you represent, what is it that makes you unique to law firms, what is it makes you unique for in the market and even within your law firm. So everyone has a brand, and there's lots of ways to protect your brand, and there's also lots of ways to grow your brand. What's so great about the legal profession and also working in law firms is that you can start framing and creating your brand initially, right away, but you can also do it at any stage of your career. So I've seen attorneys that are 15 plus years out of law school and start working on creating a brand, and it can have incredible effects, both on where you work and also the type of clients you're able to bring in and your long-term success practicing law. And just to give you a little bit of a sense how a brand works, you have a long runway to create a brand. So if you are starting the practice of law when you're getting out of law school at the age of 25, you can be creating a brand for at least the next 50 years. And so a lot of times people get very hung up on the early experience, even being 5 or more years out of law school, not realizing that you have such a long runway to create a brand and the ability to create in your career so much success and just really knock it out of the park if you do things right. So one of the things that early attorneys do, and a lot of attorneys do, is they don't protect the brand. So protecting your brand early on often means avoiding people, places, and things that are likely to harm your reputation within an existing firm or another firm. So I've always advised people to really be very careful about avoiding people that are kind of not protecting their brand and doing the wrong things and other things that are going to mess with your brand. So your brand can actually self-destruct within law firms sometimes when you get on the wrong side of issues or you're kind of socializing and basically getting close to people that are against whatever firm that you're in. And this is very common. It happens to a large proportion of attorneys, especially in major law firms. And then, to succeed in any law firm, and then in the profession in general, you need to be creating a good brand. And often creating a good brand will mean moving to better law firms than you're at. So different law firms have different brands. And one of the reasons that people are often so concerned about working for the largest and most prestigious firms when they're starting out their careers is because that gives them a brand that they can parlay into other firms like that, or even when they move to smaller law firms. So one of the things that's always important in your career is kind of trying to decide, how can I consistently move to firms with better and better brands? And it doesn't really matter what practice area you're in. You could be in personal injury, you could be in insurance defense, you could be in workers' compensation, or you could be in corporate or patent law, but you can always find and move to the firms with the best brand in your practice area. Or if you're ever interested in switching practice areas, you can move to firms with better and better brands. And just to give you a little bit of insight into how this works, I've worked with lots of attorneys, meaning probably, I can think of at least 20 or more that started off their careers in very, very bad shape. So they may have not had a job when they graduated from law school. They may have failed the bar 2, 3 times and been unable to get a job until they passed the bar. And they started out at firms that didn't have good brands and that they simply, were not thinking that their careers would go anywhere. But they managed to create very good brands inside their law firms. They did things right, and then consistently over a period of years moved into better and better firms, culminating with working in top Am Law 100 law firms. So these are good reasons often to move if you want to establish a better brand, but you need to understand how to do that. So several years ago, I remember, this is just kind of will help you kind of contextualize this. I was working and I was in an acting class and I was taking a class in Italy, and there was a man there that was describing how everyone in this small town, which was kind of isolated from other areas of Italy, was kind of in fear about what other people thought of them within this small town. And so they lived lives that were very conservative, and they knew that whatever they did in the small town, other people would gossip and talk about because they really had nothing else to talk about. And so people were always kind of judging them. And then people would sit on their doorsteps in these towns, and because it was small, they would see everybody walking by. They would meet in 1 or 2 local cafes and talk about each other. And then women, of course, walked in groups and things between other people in the town and gossiped. And And even at night, when people were talking in the small town, and in a town of, 300 people, everything on the dinner table would revolve around talking about others. And even anything that they saw in public would be noted by others and become the subject of gossip. And everyone in this town sort of lived in fear of doing something wrong and being thought of negatively. And if someone did something wrong or something that was in any, that was judged poorly, even decades ago, they were cast as one type of person and didn't really have the ability to throw off this brand that they developed. So all of the stuff for these people was sort of, judged personally in a bunch of different ways by things that they may have done when they were young, and they were cast as a certain type of person. And so this particular man had come to the United States on scholarship, and then at one point during the class, at the end of the first week, he broke down crying because he realized that now, finally, after being kind of isolated in the small town for so long, he was being people were liking him and thinking highly of him, and giving him positive feedback, and he was being defined based on what was happening now, which was very positive but not in terms of things that happened in the past. And so his strengths, his personality, and other characteristics were being seen for the first time by a new group of people, and they weren't judging him based on decades of his, who his parents were and what things that he'd done and all these preconceptions. He was being judged as he was now, and not something in the past. And he had the opportunity just in this class to start fresh and succeed in a new environment where others were not discriminating against him and judging him based on things that had happened in the past. And so inside of the small town, he had a role and was defined as one type of person, and he wasn't really able to shake that off, and he was defined by others in a way that kind of suited their own needs. And so one of the things that I'm sure that you can be seeing out of what I'm talking about right now is, if we define someone based on their current limitations, it can make us often feel more secure if we know the kind of person someone is and we believe it. And but if you're defined in a positive way based on your skills and strengths, you often feel much better about your strengths, and it makes you feel like a better person, and happier, because you're being defined on your present. And just to give you a little bit of insight what I'm talking about, which I'll talk more about in the next few minutes. In any law firm that you're in, you will be defined in a certain way. So if you are defined in a positive way, that's a very good thing and can help you. But if you're being defined in a negative way, that may not help you and it may not suit you, which is a good reason to move firms. What happens to attorneys often in their first few years of practice is they're learning kind of on the job. So you get into a firm, you're making mistakes, and you're not taught how to practice law in a law school. In law school, you're not taught about interpersonal relationships and how to get along and how to define yourself with others in a positive way, how to look like a someone that benefits the firm in terms of the partners you're working with, and you start becoming defined often in a negative way. So even associates of the very best law firms in the country will often move firms after 1 or 2 years because they don't like how they're defined. And then they go into a new firm, kind of learning from those mistakes and things that may have happened that they didn't understand when they got there. And they will go to a new firm and be able to create a new brand for themselves and succeed. So this is one of the whole reasons for lateral movement. So if you're at a firm that's defining you negatively, you can take all your experience and mistakes you made, and you can go into a new place where your past isn't going to follow you. Like this man I was talking about in Italy, where he just had no way to jump out of this. It was very common in the United States, and it's kind of very ingrained into the early culture of the United States, that people would uh, move from the East Coast, where they may have made mistakes or been defined negatively. It's always been a little bit more of a conservative culture in the East Coast, and they would move west. They would move to Texas to try to start fresh, or they would move to Oklahoma or Kansas, and then from there, people gradually would start moving out to the West Coast and create fortunes and do all these things that they couldn't do when they were defined by a brand on the East Coast. And this is kind of early in our country, and to some extent, it's still going on. And you see entertainers and all these people moving to the West Coast often because it's something that's going to help them break through whatever limitations they may have been experiencing in another area of the country. It's also common for attorneys often to switch firms because of this, or to switch even geographic locations for this, because it can help you a great deal. So one of the things to realize that when you're inside any firm is it's competitive, and associates are competitive with each other. And so, the social order of different law firms are often revolve around how you're seen. So if an attorney it has a brand where they're considered like a really good writer, for example. Other people that are kind of competing that want to be considered something like that may find ways to undermine that attorney and challenge them in that role. So there's always kind of interpersonal conflicts, and conflicts for work and conflicts for your brand that are occurring inside of law firms. If you're competing with someone just to be like the best writer, and there's someone else that has been in the firm before you or wants that characteristic, they actually may start creating rumors about you or finding ways to undermine you in other ways. I mean, it can be as simple as saying you drank too much at a Christmas party, or did something else wrong, made some sort of mistake, and then they will repeat it over and over again to try to define you that way. So, if you're competing with another attorney to have the most hours, they may start trying to create rumors that you're padding your hours, or something about you psychologically, or just making too many mistakes, and other things like that. So law firms are actually extremely competitive places, especially for younger attorneys and associates, because everything you're trying to do in terms of maybe defining yourself in a positive way, other people inside the law firm that you're competing with are often going to try to define you in a negative way. And this is just how people compete with each other inside of law firms. It's not something that people are even prepared for when they join a lot of law firms. And once someone starts trying to define you in a negative way, unless you're able to defend yourself, you may become very, unpleasant and angry and happy and paranoid about every single remark or every single thing that happens, no matter how small. And you will be, often viewed in a negative way. So it's just something to be very, very aware of, that attorneys often, when they join law firms initially, are very kind of bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And after some time in law firms, I'm sure if you've been in a law firm for any length of time, you will see people that become very paranoid about remarks, about anything that happens, because they realize that others may be trying to undermine them. And it's very, very serious, because it actually works. And because of that, people will often prematurely leave the practice of law, or just be very, very paranoid and upset when they join new firms. There's kind of a prejudice, which I'm sure you're aware of, against attorneys when they become more senior inside of law firms, and when they get to their sixth, seventh, and eighth years, more like their seventh and eighth, they will often want to move firms, and law firms won't be often as open to that, because people just become very paranoid. They're worried about getting fired, so they start documenting every negative thing or something that the firm has done wrong, and they're often not as easy to work with. And so, the thing that you need to worry about, and everybody needs to worry about, and it's not just for law firms, it's for other types of employers. It could be working in-house in a decent size in-house department, but you have to realize that there's always going to be people around you that may be trying to cast you in a role that's negative or not positive. It often even happens with partners doing that. So a partner may want to advance one person to be another partner that's an associate, and another partner may want to not advance that person or have a grudge against someone that's giving you a lot of work and will look for reasons to undermine you as well. So you have to protect yourself not only against associates trying to do that, but also other partners, because people are trying to get ahead and be viewed as the best person. So you may be cast as someone who's never going to bring in clients by a partner, or someone that brings in clients but is a bad attorney and risking a malpractice suit, or someone who's dishonest. I've seen that happen. Lazy, someone that drinks too much, excuse me, or uses drugs, or is a tyrant, or someone that cheats on your spouse. I mean, you need to realize, and this is something that people in law firms often don't realize very early on, and this is a big piece of advice I'd like to give you right now, because I've seen so many people destroy their careers or run into major issues in a law firm, even when they've been there for several years. Anything you tell someone, I don't care if you think it's your friend or whoever, anything that you tell someone that has any sort of negativity attached to it will be used against you. Meaning, if you are someone that cheats on your spouse, and you tell someone, that will be used against you and your brand, and will get all over the firm. If you are someone that has substance abuse problems, that will be used against you and circulated. I mean, people will know about it and affect your brand. Anything that you do that's negative, if you tell anybody, you can assume, even it's your friend, that will be distributed and people will learn about it. And people often don't realize this. So you need to be very, very careful about sharing any form of negativity or problems with other people, because people will often define you based on that. I can tell you one example that happened to someone that an associate that I knew. She was working for this partner. The partner was pretty conservative. She told someone in the firm that she had, I don't know, met someone online in another state. That person had traveled to see her, and all they did was have sex for the weekend and then never talk to the person again. And that she told someone that got back to this partner. The partner had been someone giving her work. The partner didn't like that at all for whatever reason, and stopped giving her work, and she ended up losing her job. And it wouldn't have happened but for that. So you need to understand that anything that could possibly cast you in some sort of negative role, you have to realize that anybody you tell, that's going to be told to others, and others will use that to harm your brand and advance other people within the firm. And you can watch this sort of thing playing out. I was listening yesterday to a news channel, and they were talking about someone that was up to be nominated for had been nominated for a very, very important position, and these stories about this person drinking too much at a party and talking to women inappropriately, but even though they were married, started coming out, and that person lost this important, like, major role in the government because of this issue. So you need to realize that all this sort of stuff will come back to you and can hurt you, and people will always use anything negative that you've done against you. You can watch that play out in politics all the time. So you just need to be very, very careful and understand that people are always trying to cast you in a negative light. So you need to avoid situations where that happens, and you need to be very, very careful. Sometimes these brands and ways people try to define you may have absolutely no bearing on your ability to practice law, but will hurt you. And especially inside of a lot of small law firms, which are really no different than the small town that I explained to talk to you about in Italy. You can have a brand associated with you that is not good, and you will be treated in a certain way by secretaries, associates, and even people in the mailroom will learn about this. There are so many people that can define your brand within law firms. One of the big ones actually is your legal secretary or other legal secretaries, because they gossip. They have the ear of partners that they may be working with, or other legal secretaries do. So I've seen people's brands, based on things that have happened with legal secretaries, actually hurt their brand quite a bit. I mean, the secretary may be asked to cover for them when they've done things, and the secretary may, but other people will be told about it, and that can hurt you. Even people in the mailroom. I mean, there's all sorts of people that can affect your brand inside of law firms, and you need to be very, very aware of it. So anything that you do, can be judged negatively if you're not careful. And often those things that happened months or years ago will define you in ways that are difficult to throw off. I mean, when I've been in law firms, I've heard, stories about partners that, may have done something years ago, and are defined in that way that's negative. And then people do want to define you, and you need to be very careful, because once you are pigeonholed into something like that, it can be very, very difficult. I once saw about, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, a woman that had some sort of neurological condition, and made her miss 2 weeks of work because she was very sick. And when she returned to work, because she'd taken this time off, and apparently that it wasn't that serious, but she was told by a partner that her brand had been damaged and she should look for another job. I mean, that to me is a very severe case. But once this happened, and she returned, the matters, she was given were busy work, not serious, and her brand was kind of permanently hurt. One of the things that I probably shouldn't bring up, but I will. One of the things that I've seen literally just destroy, or come close to it, people's brands and law firms, is men that take paternity leave. I mean, you wouldn't think that in this day and age people wouldn't like that, but it's something that in a lot of law firms is not respected. And partners, once someone does something like that, a man takes a paternity leave, they get back and find that there's no work for them, and creates, and then they have to leave the firm, and they're told that their brand is damaged. And this happens so often. I do want to bring it up because I've seen it hurt so many people. I saw an associate not too long ago, about 6 months ago, that did that. He had been having a really good career in an AmLaw 100 law firm. He was like in his second year, and he took like the maximum paternity leave that he could take. He got back and was told that he didn't take his job seriously. People stopped giving him work, and because he was in a practice area where the market wasn't that good, he started trying to find jobs. He wasn't getting interviews. He lost his job and had gone to a very good law school and done very well there, and had been a summer associate at the firm. And then it was a top U.S. law firm, and he lost his job. And because of the practice area he was in, there wasn't a lot of work, and he was only trying to work at other large law firms. He ended up becoming a document review attorney for another AmLaw 100 law firm. But I mean, that's very sad. And it all went back to kind of hurting his brand's paternity leave. So I would encourage anyone that is thinking about doing something like that to really carefully judge where you do it. So you need to really be able to protect your brand and be defined in a way that is positive for the firm, and not negative. So some firms may have no problem with the paternity leave, but you just need to be very careful. That can come down to things like taking long vacations and all sorts of things that can hurt your brand. So, there's one of the interesting conversations that kind of changed the direction of my career is when I was in college. I met with my academic advisor after my first semester of law school, and this is not, I'm sorry, college. And at that point, I had maybe a 3.4 grade point average, which was pretty good because at the time where I was at University of Chicago, it was a hard school with very hard grading. I don't know that it's that way right now, but the average person in the graduating class had maybe like a 2.7 grade point average. I know it's higher now because they don't do these sort of grading because it hurts people from getting into graduate school and law school and everything. But back then, that's what they did. And so I told my advisor I wanted to go to law school and thought this was a good goal. And she told me that my grades weren't good enough to go to a good law school. And that if I wanted to do that, I would need at least a 3.5 grade point average if I wanted to go to a top law school. And so I was kind of shocked by that because I thought I'd been doing very well. She told me that I asked her about, do I need to take is it okay if I still take hard classes? And I was in a kind of an advanced calculus class at that point with like 30 students, and it was on a curve. So the professor would always draw a curve after each test, and there would only be like 3 people on his curve with A's, like maybe 2 A minuses and 1 A, and then a bunch of B's and then a bunch of C's, and he would show that after each exam. And I asked my advisor, does it matter? I mean, are people giving me credit for these hard classes, or would the law schools do it? And she told me that it didn't matter. Like you could go to the University of Mississippi, or which actually I don't think it's that bad of a school, but I'm just giving that as an example, and get a 3-point grade average and major in something that wasn't a very difficult major, and come out with a 3.8. And then if you go to University of Chicago and come out with a 3.2 with a physics major, even though you might be smarter, obviously, able to take these classes and taking more rigorous classes, she actually told me that it didn't matter, and you would probably get into a better law school coming from the University of Mississippi if it was based on the grades, and assuming that the LSATs were similar, the person from the University of Mississippi would get into better law school. So that really shocked me at the time. It may shock people that are in law school right now, or went to college and majored in very difficult majors. It was just basically telling me that grades didn't matter. That grades are the only thing that mattered. So you wouldn't think that, but that's the case. And it's because law schools, when they report information to U.S. News and so forth, are reporting grade point averages, and that's typically what they're most concerned about, even to the extent that it doesn't matter where you go to school. So the reason that was very enlightening to me was because I couldn't imagine that the only thing that law schools cared about were your grades. So law firms are very similar. Your the quality of your work matters, but ultimately, what makes the most sense is having the best brand possible. So obviously, getting into the best law school is extremely important for your brand, but when you get out, your brand is going to be defined by the quality of firm you're at, and you can always move up to better and better firms if you play your career correctly and you do the right things. But you need to make sure that people think very positively of your brand and not negatively. And you need to always be aware that it's important for you to do whatever you can to improve the quality of your brand throughout your career. And you can start in the worst possible place in your career, and where you think that there are where you're already a failure, but it's just not the case. You can continually move up and improve your brand. And if you're in a situation where where you're doing everything right. You're being careful about what you say. You're making sure you protect your brand the best possible way. You do the best work possible. You work as hard as possible. You can put yourself in a situation where you do have the best brand, and you're defined positively and not negatively. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. But whatever it takes for you to have the very best brand at the beginning of your legal career, and then making the decisions and distinctions that are going to give you the best brand, better you'll do. Just keeping in mind all the time that whatever you do is related to your brand. Are you someone that's very focused on a practice area? If that's the case, then you're going to have a brand that shows you're focused on a practice area. Are you someone that's working and the brand and the practice area would help you get into other firms? Are you someone that's working with the best partners in your firm? Are you someone that's known to bring in business? Are you someone that's extremely good with people? Are you someone that doesn't get into trouble by taking sides on issues? Are you someone that other associates in your firm or admire? And it's the same thing with partners. Partners need to protect their brand. Partners all the time get in situations where their brand's destroyed in their firm. It can happen for the most stupid, inconsequential reasons. I saw one partner lose his job because he wore a pair of jeans to work on casual day that had a rip that were too close to his crotch. I mean, they weren't in his crotch, but they were very close, and some woman complained, and that destroyed his brand. He lost his job. I saw a guy that a friend of mine that was working for the NFL and had a very high-ranking job there where he was making over $500,000 a year and doing all these great things. And he, during a meeting, had a girl that was working for him that had been up all night, and he went up behind her and just grabbed her shoulders and like kind of grabbed them and said, I hope you're okay. Thanks for working all night. She complained, and he they went down and talked to him. They did this investigation, and they found out that he had been entertaining a bunch of professional football players, and they had wanted to go to a strip bar, so they all went to a strip bar, and he drove there with them, and took them there, but didn't even go in himself. And so they used that against him, and his career with the NFL was over just from doing some stupid things. So you need to be very careful about your brand, and you need to realize that you're just at all times being judged for all sorts of things. If you make comments, you can be judged on that. Just all sorts of stupid things. I saw one woman that was working at a major law firm, and they were discussing with her being partner, and she had great reviews. She'd been at the firm for like 9 years, and someone didn't like her, and they said, well, you really damaged your brand when you said you had too much work to take on this assignment 2 years ago, even though no one had brought it up after that. And I mean, this crazy stuff that happens. And so there's so many issues with being defined negatively, and it's very common. I mean, most attorneys at some point in their career will lose their job. Many lose their jobs multiple times, and often when that happens is because they've made mistakes. Some of them just dumb that anybody can make, but they've done things to define their brands in a negative way. So when that happens, people may avoid working with you. You may be kind of cast in something negative, and then you will be treated in a way that defines that negative view. Now, you may be in that situation right now because in most firms, there are going to be people like that, and it's difficult. Some law firms have brands that they expect the people working there to have, and people are kind of always trying to find reasons to hurt your brand, because if they do, that makes things easier for them. And I'm not just talking about at the associate level. I'm talking about with partners, defining each other. Anybody at any level of a law firm is always trying to protect their brand. And And there's ways to do that, to have a good brand. I'll talk to you about that in a minute. I've already talked to you about some of the ways to protect your brand and things that can happen. But anytime you do anything negative in a firm, that is often brought up into reviews, even if that negative behavior is not there. And then, of course, there are people where you can do negative things and the law firm won't even say anything about it because maybe you work extremely hard, or maybe clients really love you, and so you can offset negative things. Often, I mean, the attorneys that build the most hours and get the most work, they'll often look the other way when people do things. I've seen that in lots of firms where someone may be billing 2,800 hours a year and does something really stupid, and the law firm just blows it off. There was a partner that I knew in a law firm that had done something incredibly, something that you would think a partner would get fired at any law firm. He had been on a case in Detroit. He was a very hard-working partner, built tons of hours, had an incredible pedigree, had business, and he was at they were doing a trial in Detroit, and he was from Los Angeles, and in the middle of the night, there was this huge commotion because he had kicked, I mean, this is a true story, had kicked a prostitute out of his room in the middle of the night without her clothes, and she was banging on the door trying to get them. And another partner in the firm was woken up because this was in the room next to him, and this whole thing was just kind of swept under the rug. People knew about it, but no one cared because he was just, in other respects, considered so good. Now, this would, of course, not happen in the majority of firms, but it can show you that different firms have different expectations and will look the other way for different things. People, of course, in the employment world, unless it's some sort of employer that doesn't care, will of course avoid someone that may be a felon for some stupid reason. I mean, it could be just people get a felony conviction. It could be for something that's not violent, but obviously that's going to impact anybody's ability to get jobs. If someone cheats on you in a romantic relationship, but certainly happens to a lot of people, you will often end the relationship because you don't trust the person or thinking it's going to happen again. People that have bad experiences with cars, that brand of that car will be tainted, and people will avoid buying similar cars in the future because they don't want to have a negative experience with that same type of car again. I remember my parents got this two Chryslers in the late 1970s, probably because it was easier to get financing with that than other companies, and had a horrible experience. I mean, it was just terrible cars, and I watched all these things happen with these cars. And so I've, 40 years later, I don't even look at Chryslers just because I remember that. So that can taint things. And so if you've heard bad things about living in a city, the city will have a brand, so you will avoid living there. So people avoid businesses, and products that have bad reputations, often when it's just not logical to do so. Same thing with schools. They'll avoid the person often, law schools without the best grades, not necessarily because it's logical. It could be a really good school, but because that the numerical reputation grades will have an impact on your brand. So when you go into law school, obviously, your goal is to have the best grades possible. And it doesn't matter if you take a bunch of stupid classes. All that matters really is that final number. So how do you protect your brand? One of the best ways is to avoid people that are likely to hurt your reputation. So you need to be very careful inside of law firms. Who do you associate with? And even down to partners that you're working with. There are certain partners that will always have a negative, or almost always have a negative review of the people that the associates that are working for them. So you need to often avoid those sorts of people, but you also need to avoid other associates. The one firm I worked with had this woman partner that really had no business working in the firm I was in. She had gotten into that firm through her husband, who was a very had a lot of business and was a very good attorney, and a very good attorney, very very smart. And she'd gotten into the firm based on that, and was really kind of in over her head, like different things that she was given to do. She didn't couldn't understand. Like she literally was not intellectually uh, equipped to do some of the work that she was being given, but she was very well connected politically within the firm because of who her husband was. People were willing to look the other way with her and keep her in this position, and she was the head, like president of the Los Angeles Bar Association, just other political parties. She was the head of, just very very well connected, and was basically hired because of her husband and all these connections, and very very good in politically, and hired because of that. But she quickly got the reputation of being someone that was extremely difficult to work with. So what typically happened is she would give someone an assignment, and if it was complex, meaning the logic was very difficult to follow, the certain things needed to be briefed in a certain way, she would literally get this work, and associates would have to walk her through things. She would get very uh, mad and discouraged, and realized that this associate didn't think she was that smart, which was pretty obvious. And other associates kind of knew about this. I mean, this is a true story. And then she would kind of, after the associate had done the assignment, uh, instead of them uh, instead of them saying something bad about her and hurting her reputation, she would just do a 180 and turn it on the associates, and make it so the associates looked like there were problems with their work, and she would come up with all these different things and tell all these partners. People would uh, take her side because of her connections and who her husband was, and it was just not good for people. And she would do so much damage to their reputations and their self confidence after this, that people would just their careers would often end. I remember there was one woman that was a Columbia Law School graduate, very very smart, and she was so devastated by everything that happened to her, the reviews she got after this, and how difficult this woman made things for her politically, that she literally, to support herself after uh, leaving this firm, just out of just, feeling completely isolated, no one giving her work anymore, unable to get a job right away, she became a waitress. And the short time I was there, I saw two other associates also leave the firm after doing assignments for her. I mean, this is the kind of dynamics that can happen. And so she was obviously very toxic, and could do a lot of damage to people's brands, even when those people shouldn't, by all accounts, should have been doing very well because they were smart and understood issues, things that this woman couldn't. So one day I got a call on a Friday afternoon that she wanted help with an assignment, and I should have found reasons to avoid this. I Up until that time, I'd had good social interactions with her, meaning at firm parties and things. I'd spoken to her a couple times, and she was very nice, and just really good socially, people. But without getting into too much detail, she gave me an extremely interesting and difficult assignment. It was involving the Marcoses in the Philippines, and there were all these riots going on. It was related to a bank we were representing. in the United States, and then also a bank in Switzerland. They're very complex because there was all this different law that applied to releasing money to people that were essentially rioting there. It was involving over $500 million, and as I was researching this issue, I mean, the firm was like literally on the cutting edge of everything. It was very incredible assignment this woman got, and it was from a partner, I think, in their Hong Kong office. And as I was working on this issue, there were literally protests, being broadcast on news channels about this. I mean, about this issue that we were working on. We had to come up with a recommendation to banks and so forth, and it was a big deal and a very important issue. And the partner that had given her work was, given her the assignment in the United States. She looked very good because she had all this stuff on her resume that was actually very, very impressive and didn't necessarily relate to her ability to practice law. The government that whose behalf we were working on was very impressed with her qualifications, obviously. And she looked like someone who, putting her name on things would really be, a big deal. So I researched this issue, and it was extremely difficult, because it was involving all these issues of U.S. law and then Swiss law and then the law of the Philippines and all these different things. And so she wasn't really evaluating what I was giving her, and she wasn't taking the time to really understand what I did. And she wasn't understanding it. When I would try to explain it to her, she would get angry. And I had to keep walking her through these issues. I mean, it was extremely complex. It was very difficult for me to work through as well, very difficult. But when I tried to explain to her, she was very angry, and I saw that I was in trouble. And so I knew that, I sensed that because she wasn't understanding this, her next move would be to come after me. And so there was I was about a week into it. So it started on a Friday, and it was about a week into this. And all of these people wanted to schedule a telephone conference that was, very to discuss everything, because it was at a boiling point. And she was supposed to be leading the call. So there was a call scheduled early in the morning when all these different people in different time zones could be on it. And she was supposed to be leading the call, but didn't understand the issues. I think she was mad at me for not being able to explain them in a very succinct way. But on the morning of the call, she didn't show up. I mean, there were all these people in the call, and she was she claimed that she was stuck in traffic when the call was happening. And so as a third-year associate, I literally got on the call and was tasked with explaining this information to a U.S. ambassador, an officer from the prime minister of the country that was involved in this, and several high-ranking executives of insurance companies that were worried about their exposure. And this was literally like there was a mention of it on the front page of the New York Times, this issue. So, and this woman, I didn't know about at the time, but because of various things that happened with her, she was not a full-time partner at the firm, meaning she had been made a contract partner instead of a real partner for reasons I'm not aware of how that happened, but people talked about it. So I did this teleconference, and it actually went very well. I mean, people were asking me these questions that were far above my head in terms of their importance. And even though I did very well, and she got call from the partner in Hong Kong saying how well it went and everything, I quickly realized that she was extremely mad at me because because of what I had done. And then she started, coming out against me, and I started realizing that even though I'd done a very good job with this, that she was out there trying to hurt my brand. And so I became aware of, you have to be very aware of, like, small messages, but people not saying hi to me in the halls, assignments that I had done being reassigned to other attorneys, and a few things other happened that I realized my brand was being hurt, and not because I had not done a good job, but because she was worried about how I would come out and effectively hurt her brand. So she would do this with people that work for her. And this assignment that I worked on, by the way, it was crazy. So after I had finished it and answered all these follow-up questions, it was assigned to like a senior associate in the New York office of the firm that I had that I was working in. And then I couldn't believe it, but about a year and a half later, after I left the firm, the associate that had worked on it was made partner. And in the announcement of this person making partner, they discussed how they had been brilliant and worked through this incredible issue of international law, and it was the same thing that I had done. And it was interesting because you can watch how firms work in that sort of way. So at that point, when this all happened, I'd already have been making plans to leave the firm and quit. But I understood right then and there, like, why people could have issues in that firm after working for just one partner. And I've seen different versions of that play out with associates and other people that I've worked at in firms before. I've seen partners get on the wrong side of an issue. The same thing happened, but I mean, this partner was kind of like a praying mantis, and if she thought that someone was going to hurt her brand, she was very smart politically. She would turn around and destroy theirs and to draw attention away from herself. So when you're in a law firm like this particular partner, your job is to avoid people that can hurt your brand. I mean, there are partners that can hurt your brand. There are associates that can hurt your brand by whatever. But you need to be very careful. So, how do you protect your brand? And this is again very important. So, if you think about the partner I was talking about, she was able to destroy brands, but there are all sorts of people that you need to avoid, and situations you need to avoid, and things that you need to do to maintain your brand. So your past is generally going to follow you inside of organizations. You can do things to protect your brand and define yourself in a very good way in the firm you're at, but not always. So if you avoid people that have a reputation for hurting people rather than helping them, that is a very good move. There are people inside of law firms that will give cryptic assignments and will not give you a lot of guidance. So you need to learn how to work around that. You should look at what's happened to people that are close to certain partners. Do they seem like have very good brands or not? So if they do, you want to try to get work from them. And you should be very careful about how do you protect your brand in all sorts of different work situations. So how do you do that? One of the ways is that everybody has different types of personalities. Everybody clicks with different types of people. So you will typically, the way it works, and this is just a very simple breakdown, is 1/3 of the people that you meet will like you, another third won't care, and another third won't like you. You don't know why that is, but you can generally pick up on it. So you always want to try to gravitate towards people that you think like you, or people that have work that you're very enthusiastic about and interested in, and want to work really hard on. But you need to think about how are you going to protect your brand in a law firm. And again, this is not just something that happens with associates. It happens with partners. So partners tend to be very, very good at protecting their brand. So what do they do? Like, how do they do that? What is it that has enabled them to get to that position of being a partner? And so, your brand inside of a law firm will be defined in a lot of ways. The best way to define yourself is as an associate is to do as much work as you possibly can with the hours. If you're doing a lot of work, you should try to do work that you enjoy. So work should be something that you can fall into and have a really good time doing. And obviously, as a young associate, you may be doing a lot of busy work, but you should see light at the end of the tunnel where you can work on things in a way that that's exciting to you, where you feel like you're growing in that practice area and doing work that you enjoy, not the other way around. Because if you're doing work that you enjoy, you're going to continually get better and better at it. You're going to like what you're doing, and it's going to help you. And if people not saying negative things about you, people protecting you, partners that you click with on a different level and just like people like you, or partners where you're working harder for them on something than anybody's ever worked. Those people are going to protect you and want to say good things about you. So you need to gravitate towards those sorts of people and work with people that are going to click with you. And because of that, not say negative things about you. It's another reason that it's also very important, if you can, to get mentors inside of law firms. You may go into a firm where it looks a large law firm where you may just be kind of a cog in the wheel. And if that's the case, then maybe the brand of the firm helps you, but over time, you need much more than that. So you need to protect yourself, and you need to avoid people that may just look at you as a worker and not really care about your brand. I talk to partners all the time that run, have run law firms, and they say things to me like, these associates are just here as long as we need them, if work slows down, and really do not care about protecting the brands of the people that are working for them. And that's not good, right? So finding a firm where you can be advanced based on people liking you and doing good work is very important, because you may go into firms and see that no one makes partner, that everybody leaves. And so what does that mean? Does that mean, that means that you may not want to work there. And, and you don't want to allow ever your social life to pollute your reputation in a firm. So you don't want people to know about it. I mean, there are attorneys that are very, very productive and good attorneys that may use a lot of cocaine and party on the weekends and things and still be very good attorneys, or be functioning alcoholics and all sorts of things. I mean, and that's okay. I mean, I'm not saying it's okay for you to do that from a personal standpoint. I mean, but you can do those things, but you just need to be very, very careful about allowing any information about that to go into the law firm. If you are out partying really hard with people that don't have a good reputation, that can affect your brand. So the solution to all this is to not allow any of that to bleed into the way you're perceived in the firm, and be seen only as someone that does good work, is dependable, and represents the firm and their brand in a way that you would want to represent it. So think about if you were hiring someone to be a work in your house as a nanny, and it got back to you that that nanny had drug problems, was really promiscuous, or if it was a female nanny, or whatever, or had all these problems in their past, or you wouldn't want that to be, wouldn't necessarily want to hire someone like that. So you need to think of, if someone was working for you, like in your house, like what kind of brand would you want them to have? And so you need to be very careful about allowing any of that information to come back to you. And I'm just thinking kind of off the cuff here. We had a nanny working for us at one point in our house, and she had lost her last job, and we called the people there, and they gave her a decent recommendation, but she was working for us in Pasadena, California, which is it's not a giant city, but it got back to us that she had lost her job because she had been having an affair with the husband of the wife who had children. So once that happened, we obviously didn't want to have anything to do with her anymore, and that hurt her brand. So she probably could have overcome that by working in a different city or something, but that hurt her brand. And so you want to have people saying positive things about you. You don't want to have people saying negative things about you, and you need to figure out how to protect your brand. And again, like if this stuff happens to you in law firms, which it happens all the time, and it's just nothing that you may have made mistakes, and those mistakes you can don't want to necessarily worry about following you, but you want you can move to different cities, or you can move to firms where that won't chase you, and start fresh. And law firms also are smart. They realize that people make mistakes at different points in their career, and if they get into a better situation, that often those mistakes won't follow you. But you don't want to have negative things following you in a brand. You're in a firm. You want to stay professional. You want to be professional with your colleagues. You want to avoid saying things they could use against you, and you have to realize that in most firms, the people that you're working with, your colleagues, are not really going to be your friends. I mean, they may act like your friends, but they will certainly use negative things against you, and that can affect your personal life. And I hate to be so dramatic about this stuff, but it's true. So, what do you do to have a good brand, and people, and what do you do to make people overlook mistakes you may make with your brand? And generally, for associates, it's just working really freaking hard and making the firm a lot of money, which gives them the incentive to overlook things. Or if you're a partner, bringing in a lot of business and making the firm a lot of money. So ultimately, a lot of this stuff comes down to economics. So if you do make mistakes, you can overcome that a lot of times within an existing firm by working very hard, or you can just move firms, which is also a very good idea. So when you have problems, and so trying to maintain your brand, looking, understanding that people are going to try to be tainting your brand, and trying to protect your brand at all costs, because there are people in every firm that will want to take you down. And what does that mean? So it means that you need to be very, very careful, and just realize that that any firm you're in is just an extremely competitive atmosphere, where people are trying to do everything they can to effectively, unfortunately, that can hurt you. And so you need to be aware of that, and that also is a good reason for people to move firms, even when you made inconsequential mistakes. But within a firm, you want to do everything you can to protect your firm, but to protect your brand. I've given you a bunch of examples so far, meaning avoiding partners that are likely could hurt your brand, avoiding people, associating with people that have negative brands that can hurt your brand, all sorts of things that will potentially hurt you. I remember when I was in high school, one of my best friends had gotten kicked out for something very stupid. He had asked on the way to lacrosse practice, someone was driving him, and he asked a kid that was a private school, so people, the partners, I mean the faculty actually lived on campus, and so he was on campus and driving, and they were kind of at a stop sign, and there were some kids walking, and he thought it would be funny to ask them, one of them, if they wanted some candy. And the kid took off running, and he thought it was just a joke. And we got onto this cross field, and the police had been called, and the policeman pulled up behind the car that my friend was in, and then all of a sudden, like 10 police cars, like within a few minutes, showed up and started walking across the field, like asking people whose car that was. And when they found out who it was, they grabbed the guy that had been driving the car, and then he told them it was my friend, and then they just arrested them, and all sorts of things happened, and my friend got kicked out of school. But what the happened because of that, I remember when I applied to colleges, I asked one of my teachers for a recommendation, and certainly you don't see recommendations But I asked him for a recommendation, and one of his friends had been the parents of this child, and he wrote me this horrible recommendation. And when I got into college, the missions director who I'd interviewed with took me out to lunch one day and told me all about this bad recommendation, and that before letting me in, they investigated like what happened and why I got it, and then discounted it. But that was something just by that association that when I was even in high school affected my brand. So you need to be on guard. The people that you associate with. You don't want to talk about weaknesses because people use that against you. You want people to say positive things and not negative things about you. Years ago, I was speaking with a woman who'd been recently divorced. I asked her, why they gotten divorced, and she just said that they've been together for a long time, loved each other, but there was just too many negative feelings that had impacted their brands with each other. So negative interactions, with each other over the years made it possible for them to stay together. And every time they saw each other, they would be reminded of some past disagreement or issues that they could not overcome these negative feelings, and there was just too much negativity that had built up over time that affected it. I'll tell you another quick story that's kind of funny. When I was in college, I was in a fraternity, and in my third year, they had to elect a president for the president of the fraternity is always the senior, and when they were talking about people to have do the job, I was like the only person that hadn't gotten in fights with people or disagreements. I wasn't like a big drinker or anything, hadn't gotten into trouble, and ultimately, I studied all the time and just kind of avoid a lot of issues. And so when it came time to make someone president, they were like, you're the only person that doesn't have all this negativity associated with it, which I thought was funny because it was, not necessarily a role that I otherwise would have been qualified for. So this sort of stuff can really have a lot of impact on you. So a lot of attorneys leave firms, often not because of the hours of the work, because the people around them aren't building them up, aren't supporting their brand or taking them down, and because of that, they leave. And so there's often negativity about how people see you and your peers see you. So these are all, by the way, really good reasons for moving firms. Once you get into that situation, you can certainly save yourself, but just one negative interaction can often really hurt your brand. And they can happen from one reason or another, but they will affect your brand, reasons to move firms. You may sometimes need to move to different cities for this to happen, because you can be blackballed. And if you're in a niche practice area, in a geographic area, you may move to a different states, and it can save your career. I mean, it's these things are just what happens. I was in a firm, in my second firm, and there was an associate that had gotten into a disagreement with this partner that he had done all of his work for. He had said something, it was as simple as said something to the legal secretary that had worked for this partner for over 20 years, had said something negative about the partner to the secretary. The secretary went and told the partner, and this guy had been doing good work for this partner for, I think, at least a few years. And when this happened, the partner just stopped giving him work, and he was the only person that had been giving the associate work. And so in the firm I was in, you could log into the billing system, but at the time, I don't know, this is probably not the case in most firms anymore, but you could see everyone's billable hours. And this guy had literally only billed like 10 billable hours, like in the previous 10 months or something at the firm. And so I saw this, and other associates saw it. And this guy would have his door closed all the time. I was hired to replace this guy, so I was getting all my work, most of it from this partner that had blackballed him. And I just remember one time I was in the hall, and this guy typically had his door closed all the time, and he was uh, walking past me and hurried. I'm like, "What are you doing?" And he said he was working on some summary judgment motion, really slammed for work, but he didn't have any work. And so, just this one interaction, he probably should have left immediately, but he didn't. He stayed there hoping things would change. The firm didn't fire him because that's just how they operated, I guess. But it can happen. I talked to you earlier about the partner whose jeans were ripped, and people complaining about that. Like, that's kind of crazy. But he lost his job because of that, and had a very difficult time. He was in Rochester, New York, so it's not a huge market, and I don't know if he was able to find another job. So, when something like that happens, you need to leave. And sometimes, things that would hurt your brand in one firm won't in another, because you're around people that you're clicking with, and people uh, like you, even though you may be making the same mistakes that would hurt you in one firm, not another. So you can be valued in different ways in different firms. It just kind of depends on where you're at. I mean, there are firms where are so formal. I mean, they expect people to practically, to wear a suit and to keep their tie on all day. I mean, just different types of firms. So it's impossible, many firms, for you to have a good brand because of the way they operate. So, you have to decide, will my brand work in a large law firm? Would it work better in a small law firm? Even would it work better in a different city? Because different cities, the attorneys can be different sorts of expectations for you. I mean, there's going to be, if you work in firms that aren't on the coast and towards Middle America, there's going to be a different type of brand that's respected, and it depends. And so you want to put yourself in a situation where you're viewed positively. And years ago, I mean, a long time ago, I read a news story about Britney Spears that it was kind of humorous. Someone on her staff that was kind of watching her said that she just sat in a room eating salty snacks, watching television, um, had bad gas, and was disgusted by her. And this certainly is a different image of her than was being circulated at the time, of like this cute Southern girl with a friendly, chipper manner that had been in Disney and stuff. And so, if you were her publicist, which is what publicists do, they try to plant positive stories about people to affect their brand in a positive way. It's a whole profession that people, I mean, it's a big profession where people will do whatever they can to define people in a positive way. So if you were, her publicist, you would want her to be defined in a certain way, because how she's defined will affect her ability to get work and be in commercials and all these sorts of things. So this, it's important just to kind of understand from a macro level. Most companies have publicists. Most celebrities have publicists, because they're fighting for how are they perceived? What does their brand look like in the market? Publicists will help with crises. Publicists will help plant stories about people. Look at them in the Wall Street Journal with positive articles. Publicists have relationships with the media that can help them define people. So it's a big business, and publicists, good ones, make more money than attorneys. I mean, it's very important. So, people that have brands in the market, whether it's like the Kardashians or whatever, all have brands, and all try to perceive themselves in a certain way. When they do get good brands, they can use those brands to make hundreds of millions of dollars, like Kim Kardashian or someone, and different sorts of things. And then not too long ago, there was this Me Too movement, and all of a sudden, the brands of famous actors and celebrities and all these people and actresses but I'm sorry, men. It was about men. Were destroyed. I mean, it was happening on a daily basis. And when their brands were destroyed by this Me Too movement, they stopped getting work and their careers were over. And so your brand you can see how it affects people at a very high level, but your brand can really change overnight. And it can be about things you never would have believed would have affected your brand, and they can come back and haunt you years or decades later. So, if you have a great image at your firm, I would never recommend moving if you think that it's going to help you, you're going to keep advancing. Or if you do have a great reputation, realizing that you can take those skills to a better and better firm because that's what's valued. But if you have worked really hard at a firm and you have an exceptional brand, that's what I refer to as political capital. So political capital means you've done all these things to be perceived in a positive light someplace over a length of time. And you may have worked very long to develop that brand and have that political capital. And so once you've done that, you're in a very good situation. You're able to control. You have people that think very highly of you. And if you move to a new firm, you will have to reestablish that political capital all over again, and that can take a long time. I mean, there are studies. I read a study not too long ago. It was in Business Week or something, but they were saying that it can take people up, 2 years once they've moved to a new employer to develop a good brand again. I mean, it's not easy, but if you know the rules, you can do it. But it can take up to 2 years. And imagine if you leave a place after like 7 or 8 years where you have a really good brand, and you go to a new firm and you don't understand the rules, and during that 2-year period, you don't get the right brand that you may have had at another firm, then you've certainly made a mistake. So anytime you move to a firm and do any type of lateral movement, you need to be aware that you can be negatively affected. If you don't find a place that looks like you're going to then have a good brand. So you should be very careful about moving firms if things are going very well for you, because that's not good. But most attorneys will move when they think they can have a better brand at a new firm, and that's a good reason to move. And again, often very early in your career, you're going to make all sorts of mistakes that are just about learning what it's like to work in a law firm that you wouldn't learn when you don't learn when you're in law school. So not making these mistakes can help you a great deal. And because if your image isn't what you want, then you can move to a different firm and fix it. And again, often fixing your brand, which I've done for countless attorneys, will involve some sort of geographic move, like moving to a different state often where nothing's going to follow you, or because you don't want people to be talking negatively about you. You really need to protect your brand. And geographic moves are very common, meaning you move from a small market often where you just can't control what's happening there to a larger market, or you just move from a smaller market to a larger market to another market. But it's much easier to control your brand in large markets because there's so many different firms and things, and they're not necessarily communicating with each other. So this is kind of the crux of it, and I hope this helped you a lot, because this is one of the most essential things to working in a law firm, understanding the rules of a law firm, not making mistakes, knowing when to move, knowing when to stay, knowing who to avoid, and doing whatever you can to build a brand. I didn't talk a lot about how to build a brand necessarily in a practice area, but the best brands are people that become experts in a practice area, meaning you try to become very, very well versed in a practice area, and then even within niches in a practice area. And then over time, you become seen as an expert in a practice area, writing papers, joining associations, giving presentations, creating a blog about things in that practice area. These are all things that the best attorneys do, because then they become defined by some sort of expertise. And when you see job openings, the job openings that you'll see are for people that have a certain expertise in a certain practice area. So that's how you want to be defined. You want to be defined as an expert in a practice area, someone that's very good at it. And that type of brand will enable you over time to get clients and also to get more jobs, because every job opening you see is for someone that's an expert in a given practice area. They're not for generalists. They're all these types of things. And the better firms you're able to move into, the better brand you'll have. So a lot of people start out their careers that go to the best law schools and have the best grades at the top firms. and that's the brand, but they need to maintain the brand and learn how, the right way to be seen. So often you can do this in the firm you're in, and but if you want to move, you can always start fresh again. I've seen just thousands of attorneys over the past 25 years that have moved to different markets when they have problems with the brand and done very well there, or just moved to different firms where they're able to develop a good brand. So just realizing your brand in your current firm is important, and how you're seen is going to determine if you rise and how happy there you are as well. One thing I talked a little bit about, but didn't get into a lot of detail about, was how do you, how do you keep a good brand? Most of the time, what will happen in law firms is that there's always going to be a contingency of people that are against the firm, meaning they have problems with the firm or the hours or the work or different partners, and they will all kind of congregate together and share all this negativity. And those groups are very easy to identify. They're often people that have had problems with different partners or different types of things, and because of that, that will affect the brand. So if you are seen as part of a group of those people, even if you're doing everything right in your assignments and stuff, that can hurt you and affect your brand. So the smartest thing you can do is just to put your head down and work, not get involved in all this politics, and be seen as someone that does good work and doesn't get involved in these sorts of things. And that's what, and again, when you do that, it's going to help you. Recently, I think I might have even mentioned it last week. I was working with a partner that needed to move firms pretty quickly because he had taken sides on an issue that affected the whole partnership. He had lost, and even though he'd been at that firm for 20 years, he was very quickly kind of forced out of that position and needed to find a job quickly. And so, this happens to people kind of at all levels of the profession. So I will we'll take a quick break for just like 1 or 2 minutes so people can kind of reorganize. I will take questions. And so I would encourage anybody with questions to ask questions. It doesn't have to be about this issue, but again, I will commend everyone for being on this webinar, because this was a extremely important issue that we covered today, and something that most people don't learn. If you get good at this, it will enable you to become a partner in law firms and to get clients and all sorts of positive things that will affect the course of your life. And working in law firms is an incredible profession, because you kind of get trained early in your career for free while you're paid, and then once you get trained in a practice area, you have skills. And if you're able to go out on the market and sell those skills to better law firms, you can, or if you're able to go out on the market and start attracting clients because of the brand that you've established, that can provide you money and all sorts of things for the rest of your life and a career that could last 50 plus years. So all of this could change the direction of your life and career. So you're very smart having watched this webinar. But the questions that I take today, you can ask about anything. You can ask about things that have happened in your career that you'd like to talk about. You can ask questions about how to, when to, what to do in your firm, or when to, how to overcome limitations. Pretty much anything you have a question about. And your questions are anonymous, so I won't show anybody's name or anything. So you can really ask about whatever you like. So I'll take a quick break just for like 1 or 2 minutes, and then we'll come back and do questions. And questions are like one of my favorite parts of the week, because I love hearing the issues that people are having and then helping you through them. So we'll just be back in 1 minute, and then when we do, I'll take questions. Thank you. All right, let's do questions. All right, give me 1 second. All right, here we go. Questions and answers. First question. Okay, so first question is, for Q&A, for Q&A, does promotion of sorts constitute enough reason to lateral? I had to go from an associate at a mid-sized multi-state regional to an up-council, title before partner at a larger firm. Pay is largely similar, a 6% increase in the practice area. Insurance defense injury is one I prefer to exit, but I'm a 9th to 10th year associate who reasons mentioned in the seminar, learning from mistakes, rebranding, has jumped around considerably. Currently at 5th firm in 10 years, but only for 12 months. Thank you. Okay, so there's a couple elements to this question. The first thing is I wouldn't worry too much about your practice area. Insurance defense is a good practice area from a lot of perspectives that if you get good at it and you can develop business from insurance companies and also even start your own firm, which a lot of people do. But having moved so many times, maybe your moves were for certain reasons where you were going to a better firm. I'm not really quite sure, but those moves, if obviously you keep getting hired, so you're doing something right. But there's obviously there's not there's often not a lot of competition for insurance defense jobs because of the pay and so forth. But moving from a larger firm, a national firm, is good for your brand because that larger brands are obviously have better reputations usually because the firm's gotten larger. Those firms may have larger matter or larger insurance companies they work for. So that's good. They may also be able to go into more depth in issues because of their brand, meaning instead of having to kind of cut corners with the work you're doing, they may actually offer you the opportunity to go deeper into issues and become a better attorney, which is good. Many times, instead of insurance defense, you'll also get exposed to coverage issues, which is very smart. So coverage as opposed to just regular insurance defense has a lot more opportunity because there are fewer coverage attorneys and that work is considered a little bit more sophisticated. So if you can get that type of work, that's good as well. So those are some things that I would consider about moving, and that you can that would help you. Now you did ask one other question. You say you're not interested in insurance defense. So if you're not interested in insurance defense, one of the things you can try to do is move to smaller firms that may do commercial litigation and be able to and get hired there. So people do make that transition often from to smaller firms that have insurance defense experience. Most of the time, you'll need to just apply to smaller firms, typically without openings, saying you want to do that type of work for them. And in most cities, there's going to be hundreds of those firms. So what I would do is, if I were you and really didn't want to do it, I would research smaller firms that may do commercial litigation and apply to them, saying you want to do that, and that can work. So that's one thing you can do. You can get experience doing more coverage work, which will help you tremendously because coverage work will enable you to move to better firms, and large national Palm Law 100 law firms do coverage work. So they do hire people laterally that have a lot of that experience that come from insurance defense firms. So that's one thing to think about. And then the other thing, if you're in insurance defense, to think about is often there's subsets of insurance defense, one of them being product liability. So product liability is marketable practice area to larger firms. So often national firms that may have the much better reputations of being doing different types of work. So a lot of times people will get a lot of experience in product liability. That will be the brand, and product liability, you can typically bill higher billing rates than standard insurance defense. And insurance defense firms will often do product liabilities. If you can get that type of experience, that will help. So moving to be a counsel rather than a partner. So counsel is something to be a little bit careful about. So people that become counsel, that is sort of often a non-partnership type role. They become counsel because the firm may not want to put them on that partnership role and keep them as counsel. Counsel typically, it's not a role where you're typically going to be considered for partner compared to associates, but it could depend on the firm and that you're in. I would say that in your situation, that would potentially be a move up, having that title, if it does look like that type of title can move you to a partnership role. Partnerships in insurance defense firms often aren't traditionally partnerships where you get a massive increase in salary and so forth. They're often just title related. So I would think about, what does it mean to be a partner in the firm you're joining? What is the upward potential? I would also ask questions like, is this role something where I could transition into being a partner? It's the role of counsel is better than associate if you're trying to develop business. So firms also that are handing out counsel, counsel titles to people often will also be willing to hand out partner titles as easily. So asking them if you could have that title and negotiating that may also be a good deal. So a good idea. So I hope I've answered your question in enough detail. It's a very good question because what you're talking about is something that affects a lot of people, and those are things you kind of need to consider. So just to summarize, getting coverage experience would be good. Getting product liability experience would be good. Moving to a smaller firm that does commercial litigation would be good. I didn't touch on why commercial litigation is a better practice area. It's a better practice area typically because firms that do commercial litigation are representing companies. Those companies typically aren't limited as much on the amount of work they can do. So commercial litigation firms will fight much harder on behalf of companies, meaning they will spend more money. The billing rates will be higher. You'll get the opportunity to go into more depth, and the money that you can make doing commercial litigation is more than insurance defense. For those of you who don't know a lot about insurance defense, because it is a very common type of job for people to get offered out of law school, or in some cases to get stuck in. The problem with insurance defense is the clients you're representing, the insurance companies, will typically just kind of be pushing the ball down the road and will often settle, upwards of 90 to 98% of the cases. So there's often not a lot of trial experience, and your role is to keep costs down and just push the matter as far as you can towards settlement. So it's a little bit different than commercial litigation. But product liability, people will spend a lot of money on that. So that's a good practice area. And then the same thing with coverage. Insurance companies are trying to get out of spending millions of dollars on something. So they will fight about who's responsible to cover those matters. And that's also a better practice area to get into. So anybody that's insurance defense, I hope that advice helps you. It's something I've actually thought about a lot recently. So I really like that question. It's a good question. And again, if anybody has questions similar to that, I think it'd be helpful to talk about those as well. So when should I consider leaving a firm? Let me just see. Or what should I consider before leaving a firm where I feel well compensated but unfulfilled? I struggle with the fear of making a move only to end up in a similar situation regarding loss of stability. How can I weigh financial security against the intangible benefits of career satisfaction? Is there a way to ensure that a new firm aligns better with my long-term goals and values. Okay, so so most people that are young attorneys working in firms are unfulfilled often. You're not necessarily doing the work you like. You don't often feel sometimes like there's advancement opportunity. You may not, like your role, but it's important to understand that the situation that you're in is very similar to what any associate's going to experience in a firm, because you're doing work for others, you're doing the work that they don't want to do themselves, and you're expected to work a lot of hours to justify your compensation. So, but most people that in your situation do feel unfulfilled, and if you go to another firm, you're likely to experience the same thing. And why? And that's a good question. So why are you likely to experience the same thing? Because law firms make money off of you billing a lot of hours, and so the more hours you bill, the more money they make. So they're very interested in having you bill as many hours as possible and doing the work that you may not like. The good news is that what you're kind of doing early in your career is you're learning what the firm wants. You're learning about how to do your practice area. You're becoming an expert in a practice area, and the longer you're there, the more you learn. What the typical career progression is, or what you should be thinking of if you're working in a law firm, is the long-term idea that at one point, what point do you have complete control over your career? So you get control over your career when you become a partner and you're generating business and you're running your own business essentially, and the law firm is there to provide you support, meaning other associates to work for you, office space, a brand, and your career actually becomes much more fun when you're a partner, because you're just running your own business as opposed to doing work for others. So so that should be like your long-term goal, and that can happen if you're very good at your job and you do become a partner. You can use that to start bringing in business. You should be thinking about that. If you're thinking about career satisfaction and some place where you feel like you're happier, that can mean often finding a firm that may have a better culture for you, where you feel more comfortable. But ultimately, again, all law firms are businesses, so they will do the work that's in front of them to make money. So that's just how they operate. So if they have the work, even if they talk about work-life balance, you will still need to work hard, but you may not have to work longer. It's longer hours. You may feel more comfortable with people. If you stay in a law firm, your other options are to go to a different practice setting. So that could be going to the government or working in-house for a company. And often people are much happier working in-house because they're kind of like the go-to person in giving important advice that affects how the company runs. And sometimes people will do that with smaller companies. And often people that go in-house will then get roles like becoming a CEO of the company or a chief operating officer, head of human resources, have much more long-term career satisfaction. They may not make as much money. They may not find a stable in-house environment, but they will often have a lot more career satisfaction. So, so that's what I would recommend. But just anybody that's on the call that's an associate, you have to realize that your first 8 years of practice are really just about learning a practice area, and then after that, it's kind of what do you do? Do you go in-house? Do you try to become a partner? What do you do with what you've done? And it's important, like a lot of times people talk about career satisfaction, early career attorneys, but you have to realize that if you're learning a practice here and getting paid for it, that's a good thing. And your career, can span, if you start your career at the age of 25 and you're 7 or 8 years in, and then now you're 32, you have to realize that your career can last another 50 plus years. So what do you do with those after that 7 years of practice? Like, where is that leading? Is that leading to a career that you can see yourself having for another 50 years inside of a law firm? Or is that taking you somewhere else where you'll be happier? I'll bring up another point that I think is kind of equally important based on what I've said so far. When you are, when you're let me just make sure I can articulate this in the right way. Uh, you know, the decision, when you're in a different types of markets, so different types of markets will have different demands on your time, and the attorneys will often be much different. So one example that just I keep seeing over and over again are attorneys that like maybe working in New York City and making a lot of money and not liking the hours and not feeling fulfilled, not having a lot of money to spend, just having kind of all of these different issues and that come about working in a major market like that. So what do you do when you're in that situation? Like what do you do? So a lot of times people will do things like for whatever reason they may be from upstate New York, so they may be from Syracuse or Rochester, or some are Buffalo or some of those cities, and they move there. And when you get to those sorts of cities, the demands on your time are much different. Partners will be leaving by 5. People will own houses and raise families and not have and have much more opportunities to become a partner. It's often much easier to bring a business because the billing rates are lower. And so people will often make that move, be very, very satisfied with their careers after doing that. It's very interesting. And they will be happy and have long-term careers in smaller markets. And they may be making half as much or 40% as much money, but the money goes farther and they're more fulfilled. It's very interesting. And so many times also the people that start out their careers in places like Syracuse or Rochester or whatever, they're not bouncing around between firms so much, and they have a lot more stability and they're happier and then they advance more. So the market that you're in will often have a big impact on your long-term success. It's very, very interesting. And this is something that happens to a lot of attorneys when they're in smaller markets. And one story that I've told a lot, and I'll tell it quickly again. I did a federal clerkship in a city called Bay City, Michigan, which is a pretty small market. I mean, there's very few law firms there, and then there's also a city nearby, Midland, which is a bigger city with more businesses because Dow Chemicals there, and then Flint, which was. But when I started my career in that market as a clerk, there were events that were held for local young attorneys. So it was like a Young Attorneys Association, and there were maybe 10 people in it. It was pretty small, and I went to those events. And then 20 years or so after this clerkship, I just kind of remembered clerking there, and I'd only been there for a year, and I started looking up the people that I had known, just doing kind of Google searches, and it was just very interesting. Like almost all of them, like 8 out of 10 were at the firms they were at when they were young attorneys and now partners and so forth. Whereas had I done that, started my career in, I started my career in Los Angeles, very few people that I ever knew were still at the same firms. They bounced around, were in house and everything. So often the market that you're in can have a major impact on how happy you are and your long-term success and being fulfilled. So that's just another thing that I would think about. How do you recommend doing a job search when the primary move is to escape a toxic work environment, a worry that making decisions in such a situation may lead me to accept an offer without thoroughly evaluating the firm? What strategies can I use to ensure my next move is thoughtful and not just a reaction to my current dissatisfaction? Should I disclose this reasoning during interviews, or is that a mistake? Okay, so for everyone on the call, there are law firms that are just toxic. They're toxic for a bunch of reasons. Usually the toxicity has to do with disagreements between partners, all sorts of things that ultimately destroy firms, or a lot of times when firms are like this, they merge into other firms and those firms are a problem. But you can find yourself in firms where regardless of how good your work is or whatever, you are unhappy and the environment seems very, very toxic. So this is very common. It's not something that you may not have control over, and it's not something that you will often see when when you're looking for firms. So, how do you recommend approaching the job search? You have a couple different questions there. One of the questions is just doing a job search in general, and the second one. So let's kind of let me highlight this question. So job search. Then your next question is accept an offer without thoroughly evaluating the firm. It's another question. And then the third thing is about interviews. So anytime you do a job search, and this is sort of advice that I want to kind of make sure everyone on the call understands because it's very important. People will do job search. Typically, 90% of attorneys will do job searches by looking for jobs they find on Indeed or Law Crossing or LinkedIn. I mean, generally it's going to be LinkedIn is a very common way, and so you'll do a job search there. When you're doing a job search there, you're competing with a lot of other people that are applying for the same jobs. So often it's more difficult to get interviews when you do that, as opposed to just finding firms that are strong in your practice area and sending inquiries, seeing if they would be interested in someone like you. When you do that, you're the only applicant. So the BCG, helping people do job searches in that sort of way, are really how about 85% of people that we're working with end up getting jobs. So that's the first thing to consider is, how you're applying to jobs. So you apply to jobs that are job listings, but you should also be trying to find firms to potentially talk to that are strong in your practice area, because if you do that, you're the only applicant. And if they have the work, they will hire you. So when you do get interviews, how do you thoroughly research the firm? So this is a good question, but people will research firms in the wrong way. So anytime someone gets fired from a firm or has problems with a firm, their way of responding is often to go on Glassdoor or other forums and say something negative about the firm that they work with. So you should evaluate, you shouldn't really evaluate a firm often based on that, unless there are long kind of flowing recommendation or statements about a firm that you're dealing with that potentially could affect your that are something that could be very, very well true and make you need to avoid the firm. So you need to think about that. But typically when you're evaluating a firm, you should be evaluating not overall recommendations, but the practice area that you're in. So a law firm could have 10 different practice areas. 2 of them could be toxic and bad. Another one could be really, really good. So I see this all the time with like large national firms. It just depends on the practice area, and it also depends on the people that you're working with. So one of the ways to kind of evaluate that is to ask people like, why do you have a need? Like, is there someone that I'm replacing? And that can help you. Often, one of the best ways to evaluate a firm is like the people that you speak with. Typically, when you're interviewing with a firm, they will have you interview with people that have, that you would be working with. So you need to see, do I feel comfortable with those sorts of people as well? So that's one of the best ways to evaluate where you're going to work. The third question is do you express dissatisfaction with the current firm you're working at, or is that a mistake? Typically, no, you don't want to say anything about it. If a firm is interviewing you, the thing to realize is that most often they're interviewing you because they have a business need for someone like you. They're losing money without you being there to do work. So they're interviewing you because they have a need. Typically, they're not going to be as interested in your reasons for moving as they are bringing you in. So often, especially if it's more than a smaller type firm, like with very few attorneys, meaning like less than 10 attorneys. If it's a smaller firm, they're typically not going to ask. A large firm, they're typically not going to ask as many questions. Smaller firms will often want to get into it, and if you need to, you can. But typically, no, you don't want to talk about a toxic work environment. You may want to say something like, "I'm trying to get more work in my practice area. There's not as much work as I'd like." You can portray the firm you're interviewing as a better place, something that fulfills your goals of getting more work in your practice area. And you can often just say something as simple as that it's not a good fit, and that often is enough. So just realizing that, most of the time when you're interviewing with a place, you don't need to get into a lot of detail about why you may be moving. Then they're typically not going to ask it because they have a business need for you. But you don't want to go into interviews and express sour grapes and say something negative of the firm. If it's just really bad, you can say it's not a good fit, and that's often more than enough to be able to convince the firm to hire you. It's just that's often more than enough. But no, you don't want to get into sour grapes and say a lot of bad things about the firm. But you do want to learn from what happened and how to avoid in the future. So that's a very long answer. I hope that answers your question, but it's a very good question, and I thank you on behalf of everyone, hundreds of people watching this for asking the question. It's a very good question. Okay. Okay, is it better to let me just see here. Stay at a firm that offers stability and wait for the opportunity, or take a calculated risk with a firm that seems promising. So the stability is a very important thing. So if you have stability, that means that you have a lot more control over your career. So that's a good thing. The reasons to move, if you have stability and people and you're well received at the firm, your reasons for moving typically would be to move to a firm with a better brand, or a firm that can offer you more work, or better work in your practice area. And that's important. So becoming a specialist as opposed to a generalist is very important. So if you're able to do that, that can help you a great deal. So becoming a specialist in a practice area is always a very good thing. So you may have stability, but doing different types of work. And then if you join a new firm where you already have political capital at your existing firm, you're going to have to do that all over again. And it may not be a good move. So you do need to be very careful. But I would say to you that if you're happy at your existing firm and you're being treated well, and you do see some sort of potential for upward mobility there, then you're often better off staying there. One of the questions that someone raised earlier is they'd move firms a lot. And every time you move firms, it makes you harder to get employable the next firm, because moving firms communicates that you may not be doing well at your existing firm, or you're having issues, or you're just not someone that could stick around. So there's a bunch of different things that law firms look at when they're hiring people, and that you would look at the same. So I'll kind of show you the questions that people ask. They ask, can you do the job? Will you do the job long term? I'll go through these. Long term. Can you be managed? Managed. Do you want the job? And then the final one is, do we like it? So these are the questions that law firms are asking. So they're all asking this when they interview you. They want to know if you can do the work. So typically, when you get an interview, they already see a resume. They believe you can do the job. Sometimes the job may require high hours, or travel, or different sort of things. But if you if you answer those questions correctly in the interview, then you're much more, then you should be fine. So most of the time you get an interview, you already have won this game, unless you just come in with all sorts of qualified things like you want to work remotely and stuff, or take days off during. I mean, most of the time you'll be able to do that. The other question that's important though is anytime a law firm is looking at you, they want to know if you're going to do the job long term, meaning are you likely to stick around? Because if you were a firm, you don't want to have to keep hiring people and go through all the work and interviews and stuff that takes a lot of attorney time. You don't want to work with someone that's going to be checking out and leaving. So they're always, looking at, are you going to stick around? So the problem when you have a lot of moves on your resume is that it starts looking like you're never going to commit wherever you are. So when you go there, they're going to expect you to leave, and that's not going to help you. So the person that has more job stability is likely to be hired. So the fewer moves, the better. So you don't want to if you're just moving firms for the sake of moving firms, that's never going to help you. Now, law firms, you can often give the impression that you will stay by saying things like, "This is the exact type of firm I've been trying to work at. You have the work I want. This is what I've been looking for." And people that are able to do that are often most likely to get jobs. So with each successive move, you can move 4 firms in 8 years. But if you're moving to a better firm that's taking you closer to that goal of finding the right place, then when you interview with places, they will like that. Being able to be managed is something that comes up not that often, probably comes up 20% of the time. What being managed means is, are you someone that that will do what the law firm wants, won't question them, will be on their side, will not create problems, do assignments when they ask you, and that sort of thing. So that's the third most important thing. And then the fourth one is really wanting the job. So going into interviews and acting like this is a place you really, really want to work. The people that do that are most likely to get jobs. And then, of course, being likable by them. But these 4 things are extremely important, or these 3 things are really most often how you're being evaluated. So you need to go into every interview and really communicate that you're going to be there the long term, that you're able to be managed, and that you really, really want the job. And wanting the job means you have to have really good reasons for wanting to work there. We just have a few more questions. So if you have any additional questions right now, I ask them because it will help everyone here. So let's see. You mentioned that many attorneys move for the wrong reasons. How can I differentiate between seeking better opportunities and chasing superficial factors like firm prestige and salary? So firm prestige is not a superficial factor, because the better firm you're at, the better pedigree you will have. So if I call a partner at any mid-sized firm in the country and I tell them that I have an opportunity like an Am Law 100 law firm for them, they're often going to be very interested in that and think about that quite seriously. So that these are good reasons for moving. Something that I would think think about. So prestige is not a superficial matter. Also, a massive salary increase. So if the salary increase is like 30% or more, then it's typically going to be a better firm anyway. So that's not necessarily a superficial factor. So prestige is important, and salary, I would say, is important too. Because it's often going to be a better firm. So if you can continually move firms to better and better salaries, I've seen people like move and double their salary after one move or a couple moves. So I don't think those are the wrong reasons necessarily, unless you have stability at your existing firm and believe that stability is going to be there for a long time. How important is timing when deciding to move to another firm? Okay, so typically the best time to move firms is between your 2nd and your 5th year of practice. So you're going to be much better received if you move firms during that time. And the reason is because between your 2nd and 5th year, you're typically good enough that you can understand things and do hit the ground running. Typically it's even between, I would say, your 2nd and 3rd year. You're going to be, the third is kind of closer to where it's the best time to move. You will be the best received between your 2nd, your 3rd, and your 5th year of practice. So if you're moving during that time, you're most likely to be able to move to a better firm, and you're most likely to be able to get a better job. So that's really the most important time to move. And you can often move twice during that period of time, but you can move to a better firm or a firm that does the type of work you want. And that's kind of the sweet spot when firms are interested in you. So that's a timing issue. And then the other timing issue is when is the best time of year to move? I think that people tend to get the most opportunities when they're applying to places between November and December, meaning all through December, and then even starting in even late October. So right now is a great time to move, and the reason is because very few people are applying to jobs during this period of time. They're under the impression that they need to wait till the beginning of the year, but if you apply during that time, there will often be far fewer people to compete with, and it's a much easier time of year to get interviews in a job. So that being right now. So these are kind of the time periods where you're most likely to be well received. It could even be at some firms, I would say, to your 7th or 8th year, but really during that period of time is typically the best time to move. So this is the sweet spot, and you can move to better firms, and you're most likely to be well received. And then late October and December through December are also good timing times, regardless of your seniority level. And if you want to ask a follow-up question to that, I hope I answered it, but it was a very good question. Okay, when the reason for leaving a law firm is in fact toxic, even though you're rejective and doing good work, how to answer the why leaving firm during an interview since bad mouth and the firm is off limits. You say I'm not a good fit. The best thing is like you're not enough work. So not enough work is always a good thing. So you want to go where there's work, and this is important. So even if you're at a firm that's toxic and you're worried about getting work, that's a very important reason for moving. And really, in any point in your career, if you lose access to work, you die. So you die as an associate if you don't have access to work. You die as a partner if you don't have clients and don't have access to work. The most important thing of any career is going someplace where you have access to work. So if you don't have enough work where you're at, or you can say that, I'm not telling you to lie, but if there's some way to say that, then that's often a very good reason. Another reason is, that the job you're applying for may want someone, may want some sort of expertise, meaning focus on a practice area. So it may, for example, if you're applying for a position that does, maybe you're doing like trust and estates and real estate in your current job, and maybe you want to do only trust and estates. So you apply to a firm with a trust and estates open, and they ask you why you're moving. You say, because I want to. I'm doing a couple of different things at the moment. I'm doing almost all trust estates, but I'm also doing real estate. I want to make sure I'm completely focused trust and estates. You talk about the work and being focused, maybe that the firm offers. So not enough work is typically the best answer. And then you can also say something like, there's not, it's not a good fit for me, and you can talk about that. Law firms are always looking for, when they're interviewing you, they want to make sure often that you're not being fired. They don't like that, or that you're being forced out. So they will try to ask questions related to that sometimes to make sure that you're going to do a good job there. Meaning, are you someone that can do the work? Are you someone that can be managed, is not going to be having problems? So they're really just kind of looking at these questions when they're interviewing you. But the best answers you can give in terms of asking you why you're moving is typically that there's not enough work, or trying to get into a firm with more expertise, or a better firm and moving up to a firm that's got a better reputation. They like that as well. But anything that communicates that you're trying to get more work or move to a better firm is typically the best answer. But trying to talk about toxicity, if sometimes firms are known to be toxic places, so you can say, it's not a good fit. They're, whatever. You can talk about that, or I want to get more experience in my practice here. Those are typically the best answers. It's a tough question. Sometimes you can say negative things in an interview, and it's okay, but you just need to be very, very careful, about that. Okay, what is the tenure at a firm? Well, a new firm set you back if you change firms and extend the number of years for a partnership in a new firm. So this is a good question too. So you can often ask about that when you're interviewing with a firm, like what how many years would it be until I was considered for partner? That's actually a very common question that people ask, and the law firms will answer that question. So you can ask that question often, and it can be a very good question. So a new firm is not necessarily going to set you back. Sometimes they will give you more of a guarantee than you will get at your existing firm. And you just have to kind of evaluate on a case-by-case basis. But one of the nice things often about getting a new job at a new firm when you're at an existing firm where there's no opportunity is you can potentially make partner there, and that is a good thing. So if you change firms, and that's not necessarily going to hurt you, could actually make it much easier for you to be a partner, and that's something that happens at a lot of firms. Okay, and this is the last question. So if anybody has any more questions, please ask them. Otherwise, we'll wrap it up until next week. So let me see here. Okay, if work becomes slow, how do you know if it's a bad imminent sign or you should start looking or just temporary? Okay, so it depends on the practice area that you're in. So different practice areas can be affected by different things happening in the economy. So like right now, there's some practice areas that are slow. So real estate is generally slow, at firms. So it's something to be aware of. So real estate is right now is generally slow. So that's just something to kind of be aware of, that if you're at a firm that's real estate, your odds of getting laid off right now are pretty good. So sometimes the issues with a practice area are kind of endemic, meaning the practice area is having problems at all firms. Corporate can also be affected. So corporate can also be affected at different firms based on how slow work is. And then litigation can often be effective if firms lose clients or cases settle. So you need to find out often, like, what is the reason that the work is slow where you're at? Is it something that's happening at all firms? Is it something that is being affected because different outside factors? I mean, I don't know the reasons, but anytime work gets very slow at your firm, and you can see that, and that's happened for any length of time, it's always a good idea to start looking for jobs. I would, one of the things that I would say to you is that anytime you see work slowing down and it's gone on for a little while, like 3 or 4 weeks, and everyone's slow at your firm, they will let you go because you're a cost center, not a profit center anymore. So you should start looking for positions, even if it's just prophylactic, meaning you're protecting yourself from something bad happening. So I always recommend that. It's much, much easier to get a job when you're employed than when you're unemployed. The reason for that is if you are considered like the most valuable associate wherever you're at, you're more likely to be kept on and not let go. So that kind of affects your brand. So you're always better off, even if you go to a smaller firm, trying to stay employed as opposed to unemployed. Any period of unemployment will raise questions about will hurt your brand, because it will look like you didn't perform up until the level that they wanted to make you the most valuable associate. And it's unfortunate this happens. It happens so many careers end early, or and I see resumes all the time of people that have been unemployed for years that lost their jobs and were unable to get another job. So you should be aware of all this. You should take action to protect yourself. You should realize that if work is slow at your firm, and you can see the writing on the wall, and you're not the best associate, or you don't have a mentor who's in your corner and telling you everything is right, okay, then you should be moving firms. And it's a very good question, because you do need to protect yourself. There's nothing wrong with looking for a job when things get slow. That's a very, very smart thing to do, even if it's getting job offers at smaller firms. And if your work suddenly turns around or it looks good, then you can stay and don't have to take a job at another firm. Or if when the law firm's letting people go, they will often tell you that your job is safe for various reasons if you ask, because that is a good question to ask when things get slow. Okay, there's one more question, and then if no more questions, we'll end the webinar. Okay, last question. if a firm says your performance is not up to par and lays you off, is this something you would explain to an affirm, or can you just say the other reasons you mentioned? You can tell the firm, the firm that's interviewing you that lays you off that there just wasn't, the firm didn't have enough work, and if that happens, you just kind of go with that. There's nothing you can really do, and you can say that there wasn't enough work. So if a firm says your performance is not up to par, firms will often say that to people because they don't want they don't want it kind of getting out that they didn't have enough work to other firms. So bad performance reviews will often happen when the work's slow, and if that happens, then you should definitely start looking for a new job. Your performance might not be up to par, so that's fine. People make mistakes in their career at all different points in time, and if you've been in a situation where you've done bad work or you've made mistakes, then you just take whatever you learned from that and just don't make the same mistakes at the new firm. And one thing I would suggest to all associates, regardless of your seniority level or people that are new attorneys, graduated from law school, is anytime you go into a firm, you need to throw yourself into it 100%. I mean, even if you have other issues, but you need to just go like all in, because if you don't go all in, then the firm will not keep you around. So you need to go all in. You need to act like the hungriest person there, the person trying to do the best work. I've seen people lose their jobs at big firms all the time, and the partners will say something to them like, "You just don't seem as on fire, as dedicated as the other associates." And so you want to just be completely, all in and doing the absolute best work you can to be seen that way. If you made the mistake at one firm, then just don't make it another. I had one guy that I placed recently. It was kind of sad. He was at a firm in Delaware. He failed the bar twice, and then the firm. It was at a very good firm, like a national firm, and he failed the bar twice, and then he eventually passed it. But after failing the bar twice, they let him go, and so he was unemployed. He'd been unemployed for like 6 months, and I ended up getting him a job at another firm, a very good firm, not a great firm, but an okay firm. Actually, no, it was a good firm that had the partner that started it was from Hogan and Hartson, which is a very respected firm, and he had a couple other people working there. And so this firm gave this guy a chance. And I said when they were hiring him, like, he's made all these mistakes with his career, and I'm sure he doesn't want to make them in the future. So he's going to start there and work really, really hard. And the opposite happened. He got this incredible opportunity because no one had hired him for a long period of time. And he got there and started turning work in late, making excuses, saying he had personal problems at home and all sorts of things, and lost that job. And because of that, his career is in pretty bad shape at the moment. And so you always want to be look like you're the hungriest person and work the hardest. It's very sad. I mean, I talked about another example earlier of an associate that was at a firm and lost his job for not being like the hungriest and person there, and then couldn't find another job because of the practice area he was in. Ended up being like a staff attorney doing e-discovery because that was the only thing he could get. So you need to be very careful, regardless of the firm you're in, and do whatever you possibly can to stay employed wherever you're at. And very, very important. So be the hungriest person you can, do the best work you can, and don't take anything for granted. And even if you're at a smaller firm you don't think it's prestigious, don't be angry. Just do the best you can, because you can always move later. And you need to have good recommendations. You don't want to lose a job. Just be the hungriest possible person you can. Okay, well, thanks everyone for being here today. I commend you for spending all the time on this. I think everything you've learned today can change the direction of your career. I would encourage you to come back to these webinars, because I do, people tell me and send me emails and things almost on a weekly basis telling me that, just based on one webinar often, it's changed the direction of their legal career. So And you've learned a lot today. I mean, I'm telling you what I've learned in 25 years of experience in this industry, and I'm seeing what works and doesn't work. And I've seen so many careers just come to an end by making a lot of the mistakes that I've talked about today. So again, thank you everyone for being on this webinar, and I appreciate all the questions. And if you do have any questions during the course of the week, write them down, and I'm happy to answer them next week as well. Thank you.